Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Half Geek, Half Human podcast, where we explore the intersections between technology, business, and life. Half Geek, Half Human is powered by our company, Atiba, an IT consulting and software development firm based in Nashville, Tennessee. I am Joey Baggett, Director of Sales and Business Development here at Atiba, and I am joined by my co-host, Anna Kate Ross. She's one of our PMs. And Anna Kate, why don't you tell us a little bit about our show today?
Yeah, we have an awesome show today. It was a really, really fun interview. The topic was women in technology, and it was not just any women. It was three women from Atiba. We had Rachel Gabriel, our Director of Project Management Website Services, Amy Rochelle, a software developer and team lead, and then Ashton Bailey, who's a software developer as well. And what I loved about the show today is just how candid and forthcoming they were with some of the wonderful things about working in technology and also some of the challenges that they faced. And I also liked hearing from all three of our guests because they have such different backgrounds. I mean, they all work at the same company and they're all women in technology, but their roles at Atiba and their roles to get where they are at this job, their kind of backgrounds are super different. And it was just fun to hear from them about how they got to be where they are today.
Yeah, and it was so one thing you guys will notice that's different than our other shows is that since we're doing women in technology, Anna Kate ran this show solo. I did listen in. I stayed silent back there in my little corner, but it was cool to hear just coming from my experiences growing in my career, the differences in what some of these ladies had to go through and had to experience. So that was really cool. And honestly, another thing you guys won't see is that after we were done with the interview, we stayed in this room for another 30 minutes just talking. So it was really cool to just, and even then, just be candid and have a conversation. Kind of inspired us to even do a part two of this at some point in the future, just because it's worth it. And the conversations were great. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Just hearing from these ladies and I don't know. I could go on for days about it just because it was a lot of fun. And then even the conversation after was just so much fun to hear. And I wish we could have just kept recording for another 30 minutes.
I know. I wish we'd captured some of that too. But yeah, it was an awesome interview. We hope you guys enjoy it. Let's kick it off. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Half Geek, Half Human podcast. We have a really special set of guests today. I'm really looking forward to this. The topic of our show is women in technology, and not just any women. We have three women of Atiba joining us today. They all have different backgrounds and different set of experiences, and I think it's going to be a really cool discussion. So today I'm joined by Rachel Gabriel, our PMO, our Director of Project Management and Website Services, and several other things, it seems like, depending on the day. And we also have Amy Rochelle, a graphic designer turned software developer and team lead. So welcome, Amy. And then we have Ashton Bailey, who's a software developer and a somewhat recent graduate of a software school in Denver. So we have kind of three different women with three different set of experiences coming at us today. So thank you guys for taking time to join us. It was not easy to find time with this busy group of people to schedule this 1 hour session. So I'm glad we could all get together. I know you guys are busy with your client work. So one of the things we'll get into today is all about some of the challenges and opportunities that women have in technology, which, historically has been more male dominated. But I thought we would start out with just people learn through storytelling. And especially if there are any young women listening, it would be great to hear kind of your backgrounds and how you all got to where you are right now. So I'll start with you, Amy. I loved, when in some of the questions we teased out at the start, we asked what, everybody wanted to be when they grew up and what did they go to school for? And correct me if I'm wrong here, but your path, you wanted to be a graphic designer when you grew up. You went to school to be a graphic designer. You got a graphic designer job. And then eventually that led you into software development. But you started out pretty true to what you thought you were going to do as a kid. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I went to school for it, graduated. I've got a bachelor's degree in graphic design. But then I got out in the industry and realized that my degree was not going to get me very far. Print always exists, but it was definitely not the thing at the time when I graduated. Internet was the thing.
And what year about was this? When did you graduate?
This was in 98.
Okay, yeah.
So I was having trouble finding a job in the print industry. And of course, seeing lots of opportunities in internet, but had not done much of anything with that. Web design and everything was not in the curriculum and everything, but I found a company. The owner very much appreciated my portfolio for print and felt like he could take me under his wing and teach me web design and that industry. And so since I couldn't find a job in print, I said, well, let me give this a try and see what happens. And so the story goes.
And here we are. Yeah. And you've been, how many years has it been now since you've been with Atiba?
I've been with Atiba for almost 16 years.
That's really cool. And you are a software engineer, but also one of our team leads, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So it's been a neat journey to see you kind of start in one area and then really excel. You know, what was it about software development that really kind of got you?
It is problem solving. I love puzzles and things like that. And of course, I didn't know when I started that that's what software development would be, but that's essentially what it is. I think anybody can learn a coding language, but the real art of it is determining how to take that language and actually build something from it and figure out how to put all the pieces together to get a final product out of it.
How to apply it. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So then you did have a position as a graphic designer, but you started transitioning into a web development role at that job. Is that correct?
No, it was completely as a web designer right off the bat. There was no print design at all in there. So I had to translate everything that I had learned with print design into web design. And of course, back then it was just kind of starting to begin. So everybody was really learning at the time. It started from there. And then I got several jobs as a web design, started getting into more of user experience type things. And then I worked in a job where the company wanted to better be able to see the interactions of the designs before the software developers ever touched it. And in order for me to be able to do that, I had to start learning JavaScript and HTML and actually building out what I was designing as opposed to just having flat designs. But I was having to self-teach myself that. So it just progressed from there. And I even got so much as to where I was building classic ASP pages using Access DB backend. So they could see if you chose this type of data, this is the kind of page you would see. And if you chose this kind of data, this is the kind of page you would see.
That is so cool. So this was like before the Figmas and the Adobe XDs of the world. You had to actually like figure it out yourself.
Yes, I can't even imagine if I'd had Figma back then, that would have been such a dream. But no, we did not have that kind of technology at the time. And so we essentially, and I've told my web designers that if we had had that technology, I might not have ever become a software engineer because it was having to be able to recreate what Figma does now is what taught me all that and actually allowed me to delve into that world and realize this is actually really fun and something I enjoy doing, and veered me off in that direction to where I still do a lot of user experience and things like that, but that's a less part of my job description now as it was in the beginning.
Gotcha. That's really cool. That's a cool origin story. Okay. Well, I'll move on to Ashton then. So Ashton, you've been with Atiba for about 3 years now. Is that right?
Yes. A little more than 3 years now. Yeah.
Yes, 3.5 or so. And I saw originally you wanted to be a marine biologist when you grew up.
I still kind of do want to be a marine biologist. Dolphins and whales and all that. Sharks.
You end up doing the boot camp. It was the Turing School of Software and Design in Denver,
yes.
Right? That you went through the program for?
Yes. Yeah.
How did you decide to go through with that, with your initial interest in kind of something pretty different?
Well, actually, it took several years to get to that point, but it started maybe in 2015. somehow came across Code Academy and started playing around with that. And I'm not a big self motivator, so that didn't really last very long. But at the time, for another year or so, I worked with a graphic designer at a brewery that I was working both in the pub and also on the back end with the events and stuff. And she basically did all of our graphic branding, and was not fulfilled, and decided to go to a boot camp in Portland. And I had never heard of uh, something like a coding boot camp before. So I don't know. I thought about it a little bit, but then I moved to Denver maybe a few months later, and every third person I met was going to a boot camp in Denver and getting out of the service industry. That's really like my major job history. For about 13 years, I was in the service industry. So I don't know. I felt like it just kept slapping me in the face. So I finally applied to Turing, and maybe 8 months later got in. And yeah, that's this Atiba is my first job out of that, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, it seems to be going really well. I've worked with you on several projects and have heard such great things. It seems like a natural fit for you.
Yeah, it's really fun. I've read this a few times before, but it's a similar answer to Amy's. Of why we do it is puzzle solving. And it's exactly that. I just every day it's either like a really really tough puzzle, like extra hard Sudoku, or it's one of the easy ones, and those are the ones that I don't know, get me through the tough ones. But yeah, it's nice to have a challenge in work.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Well, on to you, Rachel. So you graduated with a degree in business administration. Did you, and I know you've talked about your love of math. Did you assume you would go into a technology role? And I should also say you started at United Healthcare Group in several different capacities, but almost all in IT.
Yeah, I had no idea that I was going to end up in IT. When I was younger, I think I put on there I wanted to be a triathlete. I would race in high school all the time, and I saw all the college kids racing, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. And when I went to Roanoke College, I was the president of our outdoor club. So I was going to go be an outdoor rec counselor and move out west. And, life happened, and I ended up my first job at United Health Group, Medicare and Retirement, in their call center. And Ashton, like you, I came from the service industry too. So I did serving and bartending. So United Health Group was my first real job. And it kind of fell in my lap. Corporate came down from Minnesota to do a program to help, people that were going in for like hip and knee surgery. And we did this program where you could buy your durable medical equipment from Amazon to help keep your costs low, with the whole theory that if we could get you to not buy your stuff in the hospital, you could get it set up early, it would be cheaper, and we could bring premiums down. So they came in for this program, and I was, wanted to get off the call center floor so bad that I was like, I'll do it. Anything off the phones would be wonderful. And they ended up putting me in a role where I was documenting the program itself and tracking all the metrics. And that was like my first real type of analytical job, and I loved it. And we set up these like mini macros and Excel formulas and all this fun stuff to get everything organized so we could print out these little metrics. And from there, I was living in Roanoke at the time. They were like, do you want to come stay with this group? The group that was doing the project was United Health Group Research and Development in the technology division, but they didn't have an opening there. So they're like, why don't you go for our consulting arm? Like, go get a job up at Optum Consulting. You can be an analyst, and we'll just keep you contracted with us. And that's exactly what happened. And I spent the next 3 years as an analyst at United Health Group under research and development, building mobile applications for Optum's arm. And the difference between United Health Group and Optum is like United Health Group's product arm. So United Health Group has all of this data from patients, and Optum takes that data and then makes products out of it for hospitals and doctors' offices to use. And so my very first job was, like I said, an analyst. So I had to document all the requirements for any of the projects we were doing. And my mentor, her name was Jennifer, and she was a project manager. She was like the gold standard. I was like, oh my God, you're amazing. How do you do all this? But she taught me how to document requirements. She was our project manager and she was so organized. And, we were doing requirements down to like, okay, 1.0, we want to build a door. 1.1, the door is wood. 1.1.1, the wood is dark, like dark wood. So like, it was like we were documenting hundreds of pages of system requirements. And slowly but surely, she gave me like little chunks of stuff to lead. So I was leading the group that was doing all the testing against the requirements. And then she would start having me facilitate meetings. And slowly she was like, okay, you're now going to lead this small little project. And that's the real transition from business analyst into project management. And once I left United Health Group, I went to a small digital marketing agency in Minnesota that build websites and mobile applications and web apps. And that was my first project management role. And most of my career for the jobs I've worked, it's always been project management / business analyst. So even there, we were documenting requirements and leading the projects. And from there, it just kind of grew. I stuck with project management. I loved it. Very much similar to Ash and Amy, I love problem solving and finding the right solution to fix someone's needs. I just happen to do it at a people type of team level versus an actual like coding and technical level at that Amy and Ashton do.
Very cool. And then you went to the city of Roanoke, and from there you helped them, you were an IT project manager, but then helped them actually establish their project management best practices and processes, right?
Yeah. And that's been really fun because that's part of what I've been doing here at Atiba is taking companies that don't have any project management. They were just kind of like, let's try and get stuff done. And we don't know where things are and who's assigned to what. And, people are fighting over the one resource that knows how to do something. So at the city, that happened a lot. There was a lot of departments that don't talk to each other and one IT department with a very fixed budget and sometimes hard deadlines. And so, yeah, we just kind of put in a project management process, and it took 2 years for it to get adopted, to have a priority list, figure out how things were prioritized, and then communicate out. And we ended up hiring 3 additional IT project managers to give to the different departments to help track where their work was. And that's been really fun.
And then you've been at Atiba for 4 years now after the city you came here?
Almost 4. I'm in my 3rd year. Yep.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, I knew bits and pieces of what you guys were saying, but it was really cool to hear it, kind of your whole origin story of from beginning to end. So, as the topic of women in technology, we also wanted to talk about some of the opportunities and some of the challenges and also some of the barriers that maybe you encountered. And I'll just throw out a couple of stats right off the bat, but only 24% of computing jobs are held by women. And this was a study from 2022. So this is up to date. And, a particularly interesting stat I saw is the percentage of women among, let's see here, no, the percentage of teens that show interest in STEM topics, so science, technology, engineering, and math, is about 74%. So teenage girls, most of them are interested in these topics, yet only about 19% end up getting a job in a STEM career. So this is still very much an industry dominated by men. And I was just curious, working in this field, some of the barriers that maybe you all have encountered. And Ashton, you had said something in our pre-show questions that, advice that you might have for a young woman getting into this field is just to decide that you belong here and that you can succeed. So just you make the decision. I belong here. I'm going to do this here. Have there been instances where you've had to take your own advice, like where you have been in a room where you had to remind yourself, I belong here. I can do this.
Yes. Yes, I've had several male figures close to me, I guess, question my decision to come into this from the service career. One in particular, kind of even after I got this job for a year or so, was like, maybe you should go into managing people, or I just don't see you as an engineer, And I'm like, no, I am an engineer. So, that's definitely happened.
Yeah. And you might have, one of you also said, I think that you don't look like an engineer. Well, what does an engineer look like? Like what
Exactly.
should that look like?
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think, let's see, Amy, you had also shared something, how there have been occasions where you feel like your words are discounted, that when you've shared an idea in a room, people kind of question it, or they're kind of looking for additional validation of your ideas, but then a man might say the same thing and oh yeah, that's a great idea. That sounds like that's happened to you once or twice.
Oh, very, very often that happens. And it's, it's very aggravating. And of course, if you try to call out on it or anything like that, you're considered being overreacting or emotional or, so forth. So a lot of times you just have to kind of bear it and move on and realize just the greater good of at least that information is getting out there and being taken. But it is extremely aggravating that you have these ideas, you have these opinions, you have these thoughts, and it's not until it is backed up by a male counterpart that it is taken seriously by either a client, or even I've had it happen with peers as well. So,
yeah, I've experienced that as well. I keep telling myself not to bring up this Taylor Swift song, but I just can't help myself. The lyrics of that song, "The Man," I'd be a fearless leader. She's talking about what it would be like to be a man. And she said, I'd be a fearless leader. I'd be an alpha type when everyone believes ya. What's that like? And I just think that really rings true, that for whatever reason, I that has definitely happened before. And I think that we have to just keep going, right? I mean, what's if that, Amy, when you've experienced this, does it prevent you from speaking up in the future, or how do you kind of combat that when that happens?
No, it makes me want to speak up even more because I feel like eventually someone has to listen to me. Now I do have to admit, I have that imposter syndrome sometimes, and you do start to question yourself. Well, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, or so forth. But a lot of times I do get validated, and it does feel good in everything. But no, it does. In most cases, it makes me just want to speak up even more and say, "Hey, listen to me. I've done this for a while. I know what I'm talking about. Let's move on."
Absolutely, and just kind of stay resolute in your own beliefs and your own abilities and all that. Rachel, when you were at the city of Roanoke, I have never been to Roanoke, but I understand it to be a mid-sized city, not the biggest city out there. And I would guess in the IT department at the city of Roanoke, it was probably mostly men you were working with. Is that true?
That is true.
What was it like when you started? You came in as an IT project manager, but then you, as you were describing earlier, you saw opportunity to create some more functions for establishing a project management process. Did you encounter opposition as you were creating this change? Change is hard.
It was, but it was needed, so it was welcomed. Early on, it was hard because it was, I don't want to change what I'm doing, and so I just had to be patient and just do it. Just kind of lead by example. So I did it when I was just the IT project manager over the departments I put in my own process to stay organized, to make things flow, and evidence just kind of expanded from there, that it was, oh, this is helpful. That's cleaner. What are you doing? What, how are you successful in that? Yada, yada, yada. But the amount of proof. And so to piggyback off what Amy was saying is that I couldn't just say, just do it this way, or this is what I'm doing and it's working. I had to prove why it was working. So that is the difference I see a lot, is that it's not just at your word or your experience coming in, and some of it is like, if you're new to a company, you need to, show your peers that you're capable of doing the job. But once you're proven to be capable, the amount of work it takes to justify your decisions and just give the evidence to them laid out, that is so much work to do, versus just saying, here's what I did, here's what you should do, or here's what we can do as a team, and just lay out the steps, everyone go do it. You have to talk about why to do it. And that's a kind of a key difference. And it takes a lot of energy, and sometimes it is not encouraging, and it makes me just like want to, okay, stay back and wait for people to come around. But that is a difference for me.
Yeah, the justification piece is frustrating sometimes, having to add the extra justification. Ashton, I'm curious, having recently graduated, somewhat recently within the last 4 years or so from this boot camp, were there any initiatives at the school you went to, I don't know what the right term is, encourage women, assist women, support women? Did you, seeing as though we have come a long way and there are more and more women joining this field, I'm just curious the university response, if you saw any evidence of additional support to get more women in this field.
Yes, absolutely. Turing is great about representing and uplifting underrepresented groups of people. So it's not just women that they encourage to apply, and they also have several scholarships as well that they give to people for financial and stuff like that. So yeah, and then during the actual curriculum, we carved out time each quarter, I guess you'd call it, for education in this sort of topic. Those were interesting and not really news to a lot of us who suffer under these conditions regularly in all fields, really. But it was good to have these things laid out and provide an open discussion. And that's really what it was. I mean, we'd block out maybe 4 hours of Friday during that quarter to be led through topics, but and kind of given a focus on each of them as well. I will say, I mean, while my cohort was fairly diverse, I've seen before and after just that. I don't know if it. I mean, they do several cohorts a year, so but it's not always diverse. There is quite often still overwhelming presence of white men in those programs, and so despite all of their efforts, it's probably still really just the number of white male candidates they have applying each year, and so they've done a lot of community outreach as well. But even though my cohort was fairly diverse, we still had a couple men who are younger, I should say, like early 20s. One was actually probably 19, and who would just, I don't know if they just weren't experienced or if or what, but there was always pushback in those discussions from them, and it was kind of the thing like, well, how am I supposed to get ahead if you're given an advantage as an underrepresented person? And it's just really backwards thinking, but I'm glad that's like the person. Those are the people that we need to have present in these conversations as well, because we already know what's happening. And I was given, I guess, better vocabulary and an easier way to talk about it with other people through those discussions. But yeah, these are the people that don't know anything about it apparently. So yeah.
Yeah, that's neat that they did that. So it sounds like there were speakers that would come in. There would also some like small, like some discussion topics where everyone was encouraged to kind of weigh in on an issue, that kind of thing on these Fridays.
Maybe we had one speaker come, but that was more of a school-wide thing. It was more our instructors would sort of pull a topic out of, I guess, current events and have us discuss that. So.
Gotcha. And you bring up a really good point. There are many different populations who are underrepresented in tech, and today's conversation is all about women, but we could and should do a whole other one on diversity in technology and how that can and should change. So the three of you did not anticipate going into a role in technology. And also, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that was a different conversation, and curriculums were different too. So there was maybe less interest at that time. But what advice, and this is a question for the group, for any young women who are thinking about getting into technology, what are the benefits? Why would you encourage it? What kind of advice would you have for young women?
I'll go. Okay, so part of our school's outreach, we had a group of us go to a local charter school. It was, I think, middle school age or maybe older elementary. Young kids all look the same age to me. And it was a diverse classroom, and we went and there's, I guess, like a school level coding program out there, where they like kind of learn JavaScript, but it's more like a plug and play thing. So they kind of learn as English speakers how it's kind of like when you're studying English in elementary, you kind of learn how things are plugged together to make one little thing work. And we just went for maybe an hour or so to talk about our I guess like dreams in our career trajectory and really just give encouragement as people who looked like them to keep going with it and learn to enjoy it if they weren't already. So yeah, I guess talking to young people and just representing can really encourage people to do that.
Give them some exposure, kind of paint a picture of a person who's doing this job and just sort of showing up is a big part of it. Yeah. Amy or Rachel, did you have any ideas about that?
I can go. One thing that's popping up for me, and I think there's a lot of reasons for young girls to get into technology and to stay in it. It's fun. I mean, it is you get to make things and be a part of a team that makes things and solves real world problems. And it is a fun career path. The other thing too is IT as a career often is in a leadership role. And I would love to see more women in technology leadership roles. Those are where decisions are being made. That's a core of a company. Technology is often your systems, the way the company is run. And we could benefit. We talk a lot about more women CEOs, more women in IT. I mean, IT drives a lot of companies. And so keeping women in a leadership role in that organization lets us have a big seat at the table, a big one. So I think if we can stick with it and stick with a career in technology, it's needed. And that is a way to get more women's voice at a table.
I love that. Well, speaking of workplaces, I'm curious what your thoughts are on different activities or initiatives that workplaces can do or have done to just encourage more women or be supportive of women. And we all obviously share one workplace in common because we all work at Atiba. But what have been some experiences you've had at Atiba or really any workplace that has been helpful to you in your career, especially as a woman in technology?
So I'll go here, actually. So Atiba, the reason I came to Atiba was had a lot to do with my life. And it was needing that flexibility. I had a 1-year-old at home. The job that I had was not flexible in any way. You were required to take time off, even if you just needed to leave an hour early for a doctor's appointment or things like that. You had to take the whole day. And they did not understand the work-life balance. And that was something that was very important to me. It wasn't important before I had a child, but once I had a child, I realized that was something that was very, very much dear in my heart. And so when Atiba, I found out through a friend, needed someone who had a user experience with interfaces and so forth and everything. And then I found out the flexibility that it offered. And it was very much open to you working the schedule that you needed to. It was more about you get the work done when you can get the work done. And as long as your quality of work is good and you're meeting your deadlines and everything, if that is these hours or those hours, it doesn't matter. So as a mother, that was so very important to give me the opportunity to be there for my son whenever I needed to be there. Not only just for, doctor's appointments, but also if my son had something at school. that it would be really cool for me to go join in on and interact with and things like that. And I didn't have to feel guilty about taking a whole entire day off from work to be able to do that. I just was able to go do that, come back, get my work done for the rest of the day, and there's my full work day, no problem. So that was very big. And that was the whole reason why I came to Atiba. I even took a 25% pay cut to come to Atiba for that right there.
The flexibility is worth it sometimes. Yeah, I hear you. How about you, Rachel? What's been your experience with Atiba or another workplace, just in terms of support you've received?
This has been the first company where if I feel trusted and I don't get as second guessed here. If you can do the job and your client's happy, there is so much trust all the way up to the leadership level, and they'll back you up. And, we'll have to talk if things go sideways, your opinion and your thoughts on what went on is equally respected at the client level, if not more. And, that's been new, and it's allowed me to grow significantly here. And as a company too, we're not scared of mistakes, and we're not scared of taking risks and trying something new. This is an organization as a collective where we're all, let's try it. Let's see what happens. We talk about the risks, right? And we have agreement across the board, but this has been a very flexible career-wise, not only work-life balance-wise, but career-wise, to kind of feel things out and which I really think benefits both us and our clients. Like, we can really solve problems and meet our clients where they need us versus having to fit them into a specific thing. And it's been really fun, but to summarize all of that, this has been an organization I don't feel second guessed. I feel like I am respected as a professional, and I'm trusted, and it's huge.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
Ashton, anything you can add just about support you've felt since you've gotten here, especially first job at a boot camp?
Yeah, I honestly, my sentiments are exactly the same as Rachel's. I've never had this sort of, even not beyond as a woman, just as a human being with my own life outside of my job. I've been supported from the beginning. My grandfather passed within 2 months of me starting this job, and immediately I was given time off and a grace period of adjusting to life. So, and just several things that have happened after that during the last few crazy years. So yeah, I don't have much more to add than just my second to this company has been incredible to me. So, as a woman and a person.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good vibe here. It's just very reasonable. Everything feels very reasonable. That's always been my feeling also, is that, if you can meet the deadlines, like you said, Rachel, and you can, or I think you said that, Amy, if you can meet the deadline, you can get the work done. The way you go about it is kind of up to you. And everyone, it does feel very supportive and very, very kind, which is nice. All right. Well, great. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to share with us today. Just sitting here talking to you guys, I want to keep doing this. We should find some ways to maybe have some lunches or something. We are mostly virtual company at this point, so people work from all over, but have some virtual time to keep this conversation going. It's nice to connect like this. And with that, I will close this out. So this has been the Half Geek, Half Human podcast, and we really thank you guys for joining. And we'll be back soon.
You've been listening to Half Geek, Half Human.